Hey guys, Vic here with PhoneArena, and today I have all 4 new iPads for 2025. Apple just refreshed its iPad lineup with 2 new models, a new base iPad and a new iPad Air. So it's time to look at the selection, which is the best iPad to buy and what are the differences between these 4 models. So I have them here lying on the table, starting with the smallest model. This is the iPad mini. It uses the A17 Pro chipset. Next, we have the base iPad model, which is the 11th generation version. It is now powered by the A16 processor, and Apple calls it just the iPad A16. And then you have the iPad Air at the same size as the base model iPad. And the Air is a bit more higher end model with an M3 chipset inside, a very powerful processor. And then finally you have the ultimate in the iPad world, which is the iPad Pro. Now, as far as sizes go, you see there is quite a difference here. The iPad mini, of course, being the most compact of the bunch with an 8-inch screen size. And then the base iPad is only available in an 11-inch size model. And when it comes to the other models, you have the iPad Air and the iPad Pro, and these are available in either 11-inch size or 13-inch size. And of course, the bigger size is great if you're planning to use your iPad as a laptop replacement, and we'll talk more about this later, but it's just nice to know the different sizes. And let's quickly start with the price equation here, because prices for iPads are really different. The iPad mini is kind of the middle ground here in terms of price. It starts at $500, which is a very reasonable price. Then you have the base iPad, which was just refreshed and still costs $350. Great news, same old price for more storage. The base model now starts at 128 gigabytes. Then you have the iPad Air, which costs starting from $600 for the 11-inch model and $800 for the 13-inch model. And this might be the best option, but let me tell you more about this later on. And then finally you have the iPad Pro, which is really expensive. It's a great tablet, but the 11-inch model costs $1,000 and the 13-inch model costs $1,300, which is an insane amount of money. And these prices do not include any additional accessories like keyboards or the Apple Pencil. You need to buy those separately. So this adds quite a bit more to the price. All right, and just in terms of design, let me quickly show you. First, the one big difference is the bezel size. You can see that the iPad Pro has a smaller bezel than all the others in the lineup, and that is a small advantage. But if you flip them over to the back side, you see some similarities and differences. Here on the iPad mini, they all have a similar build quality with aluminum body and the glass screen, of course. But the new base iPad has no inscription on the back, which makes for a very clean look, which is very nice. And then on the iPad Air, let me quickly remove that tab here, you also have no text, so it's a very clean look. And finally on the iPad Pro here, you have the iPad Pro text. So in terms of just how clean these tablets look, the base iPad and the iPad Air look very clean. There is no text, and of course the slightly older models still have that text on the back of the devices. And then when it comes to the cameras, you have a single camera basically on all 4 iPads, but the iPad Pro also have a true depth sensor here, which might come in handy for some use cases like augmented reality, but really for what it's worth, it's just a single camera on the back of all these devices. And I'll show you what the video and photo quality shortly in the camera section of this video. So this is video recording on the iPad mini, and it is the only iPad that has its camera on the side. So it's kind of more meant for use in portrait mode rather than landscape. But right now I'm recording in landscape, and as you can see, my gaze is somewhat to the side. This is because the camera is off center. All right, and this is video recording with the front camera with the base iPad, and it has a wide option, so you can record like this, or you can record with the narrower field of view, which is also nice to see. And the quality is quite decent, full HD video. And this is front video camera recording on the iPad Air. And just like the iPad base model, it has a wider and narrower field of view. And right now I'm using the wider field of view. And again, it's 1080p quality. All right, this is the front camera on the iPad Pro. And since you have more mics, I should sound slightly better on this iPad than on the other models. And it's also a 1080p camera. So this is the photo and I would say video and mic quality you get with the iPad Pro. But what else is different? Of course, the USB-C port. All 4 iPads use a USB-C port, which is nice. We no longer have iPads with a lightning connector, but it's different speeds. So the base iPad has very slow USB speeds. The iPad Air, if you're planning to hook it up to an SSD drive, it has faster speeds, but the iPad Pro is the only one that supports Thunderbolt speeds. So if you need that high transfer speed for video editing or something else, the iPad Pro is of course the best choice. The iPad Air is the second best, but the base iPad here is a bit limited in terms of those slower speeds. All right, next up we have the display quality. And of course you see the difference in screen sizes. The 8-inch smaller screen on the iPad mini is great for being compact, but just for watching content, you're better off with an 11-inch screen or a 13-inch screen. But then the biggest difference is in terms of just brightness. So the iPad mini, the iPad, and the iPad Air all run at 500 nits of brightness, which is not great for outdoors use. And if you really need to use your tablet outdoors, I recommend getting the iPad Pro. It can hit up to 1000 nits of brightness, which is nearly double what the other tablets offer. And this is a big advantage. And another thing you only get on the iPad Pro is that nano-reflective coating, which reduces glare and is also great for outdoor use. So if you're planning to use your iPad outdoors, on the go, the iPad Pro is definitely the best option out there. What else is different? Of course, the screen refresh rate. All 3 non-Pro iPads still run at 60 Hz, which is not a great look. It's a bit choppy when you're scrolling around, while the iPad Pro runs at 120 Hz, so it has ProMotion, it has those smooth moves when you're trying to scroll around. And all these 3 iPads are also LCD technology. Only the iPad Pro is OLED, tandem OLED as we mentioned. This means you get deeper blacks, more contrast, and just more vibrant colors. So the screen quality is much better on the iPad Pro compared to the others. But would you really notice this? Should you really care about this? If you are a creative professional, if you're editing videos, if you're doing photo editing on your iPad, yes. If you're working outdoors, yes. But if you're just using your iPad most of the time at home and you don't have to adhere to the latest quality standards for image quality, I can tell you that all 3 other iPads, the non-Pro ones, still have beautiful colors and a very well balanced LCD screen, so you're not losing out on much, and that brightness is only a factor for outdoor use. So if you're planning to use your iPad mostly indoors, you'll be fine with all the options. Let me also quickly mention the colors. With these 3 iPads, you have various color options. You have some fun colors like a blue model. On the iPad Pro, you only have 2 color options, and they're kind of boring, more business pro-like. So if you want a bit more fun in your iPad selection, you should go for these ones. All right, next up, let's talk about the iPad being a productivity tool. And for this, you need a keyboard. And this is one accessory that I really recommend despite the exorbitant price that Apple wants for each of these keyboards. Now, the iPad mini does not have a keyboard option at all. The base iPad model only comes with the keyboard Folio by Apple, and if you want the best keyboards, those would be on the iPad Air and the iPad Pro, which are the Magic Keyboard options. Now these are really expensive, prices north of $250, but they are very well made, high quality materials. So let me show you quickly all the options you have here. So this right here is the Folio keyboard for the base iPad model, and as you can see, it has a function row, which is nice to see. A nice travel on the keys. You have this trackpad and connects right here via these magnetic pins, and it's a 2-part piece, and the second part is kind of for protection, and you can also prop up your iPad by using this here kickstand. So this is what it looks like. All right, so next you have the Magic Keyboard for iPad Air, the white one, and the Magic Keyboard for iPad Pro. And the main difference between these two is the materials they use. This one for the Air is made out of rubber, and the one for the Pro is a metal one. So it feels more solid and much more like the keyboard on the MacBook. But in terms of functionality and just overall look, these are very similar. They both have a large trackpad, they both have nice travel to the keys. These are incredibly well made, and again, you have a function roll keyboard, which was missing on previous models, so it's nice to see that one. And when you connect the iPad, you use again those magnetic pins, and it kind of floats, so this is a really nice look. But Apple is also charging quite a bit of money, and you'll see the prices for each of these keyboards on your screen. All right, next up we have the Apple Pencil situation, which is also quite complex with Apple devices. But for the iPad, basically you have your Apple Pencil first generation, you have your Apple Pencil USB-C, and you have your Apple Pencil Pro Edition. And I really recommend people go with the Pro model because it supports various features like squeezing it, and it's just a better pencil, and it's not much more expensive than the other models. Now, one thing you should know about these iPads is that not all of them have that nice magnetic connection. For example, the base iPad model does not have magnets here on the side, so you cannot have your Apple Pencil Pro compatible with this one. It's only compatible with the Air and the Pro models, and you can see here the Apple Pencil snaps very nicely to the iPad Air, and same thing here on the iPad Pro. So this is a very nice feature. Now, the other difference between these models is just the speaker quality. The iPad mini, the base iPad, and the iPad Air come with two stereo speakers, and the quality is quite good, but it's nothing compared to the iPad Pro, which has 4 speakers. It has a much boomier sound, and overall, if you want the best sound quality, the iPad Pro is definitely it. Now, battery life is not a major concern here for the iPads. They all get very good battery life. The official number that Apple gives for all 4 models is around 10 hours for web surfing or watching video. And in my real world use, I usually get around 2 days out of these tablets before I have to charge. There is a slight difference with different models when it comes to the actual battery size, but the real world use is mostly the same. And since they drain so little battery when you leave them in standby mode, they last for a really long time and you don't have to recharge them often. Alright, so starting with each model, let's see who the iPad mini is best suited for. Now, this being a very compact 8-inch device, this is its main advantage. You can slip it even in your back pocket. It's very lightweight, so for me, this is a great option for someone who wants an e-reader with more capabilities. This thing is great to read books on. Video consumption is also great. It's a multifunctional compact powerhouse, and it also supports Apple Intelligence, which you don't get on the base iPad model. It has a slightly more powerful chip as well, but it is not great for productivity. Apple does not make a keyboard for this, and it would be weird at this screen size. So if you want to do at least some work, you'll be probably better off with a different model with a slightly bigger display. Now, jumping over to the base iPad, which still costs just $350, this is a great value option, and you're really not missing out on much. But there are some caveats that you should be aware of. The first one is that USB speeds are not as fast on this iPad as on the others, and this doesn't sound like a huge thing, but if you want to download photos, edit videos, or do some creative work, this is not your best option, even though you do have a keyboard for this one, and this is a quite decent keyboard. Now, in terms of productivity, this also does not support Apple Intelligence. I don't really miss Apple Intelligence, but this has an A16 chip, which is quite old. The other 2 iPads, if you jump to the iPad Air, for example, you get a much more powerful M3 chip. So the difference in performance is really significant when you make the jump to the iPad Air. But just for base use, just for browsing the web, media consumption, and all these things, the iPad base model is great value for the money, and it now has 128 gigabytes of storage, making it much more appealing. Alright, so who is the iPad Air for? Now, in my opinion, the iPad Air is the golden middle. It is the iPad that most people should consider. The iPad Pro, in my opinion, is a bit of an overkill and it's way too pricey. This is the right sweet spot of price and functionality. Having the latest M3 chipset is absolutely phenomenal. You get a good quality screen even though it is not OLED, and you have 60 Hz screen. Again, not ProMotion here. This probably is one of the bigger downsides, but hear me out. ProMotion makes a big difference on a phone, but not so much on a tablet because you don't have that I would say, intimate connection you have with your phone. You have it very up close to you, while a tablet is a bit further away from you. So for me, 60 Hz is not as much of a deal breaker on the iPad Air. Still, it would be much better if we had it, but the iPad Air still remains great value. It has an absolutely stellar keyboard with the new Magic Keyboard. It has a function row, it's great as a laptop replacement, and the price, $600 for the smaller model or $800 for the bigger model, is very appealing compared to the iPad Pro. So finally, who is the iPad Pro for? The price on this thing is really steep. Now the 13-inch model, which is the more popular version if you want to go for a laptop replacement, will set you back $1,300, and you need to pay an additional $300 for the keyboard. So this is around $1,600. And what it has going for it is that portability. It's very lightweight, and that extreme thinness. This device is impossibly thin. The biggest advantages of the iPad Pro, if you're really heavy user, if you want to do your video editing on your iPad, if you want to do some more complex tasks, if you want to game on it and have the latest games running. Now we just saw the latest Resident Evil game arrive on iOS and iPadOS. So if you want to play those games, you have the maximum headroom here with the M4 chipset. And this is great tablet, it's so expensive. And at this price point, I have to raise one more point, is that for many people, actually, if you're looking for a higher end iPad that might replace a laptop, why not look at the MacBook Air? The MacBook Air just got updated with the latest M4 chip, and it costs $1,000. So you're getting that with the keyboard, of course. And for something similar, even the iPad Air would set you back more. It costs $1,100 with the keyboard. And with the MacBook Air, you have the expanded functionality of Mac OS, but of course, you cannot use your MacBook as an iPad. So this is a quick overview of the differences of the iPad family in 2025. Which is your favorite model? Which one would you go for? And let me know, what do you think about the iPad lineup in 2025? Would you get a MacBook Air instead? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.